Rampage. I know all of you, or a lot of you, know Rampage Poker. He gets in there, he battles, he has fun. If you've watched my YouTube channel, you'll have seen him punt off many stacks. He does his best to get some action. He gives some action, he gets some action. It is a lot of fun. You know what I want you to do? If you think Rampage is a punter fish, type 1 in the chat box. If you think he's actually good at poker, type 2. It's probably one of the two, maybe a combination of both. I apologize for being a little bit late. I thought this webinar started in 40 minutes. It's one of those days, you know? One of those days. What we're going to do today is we're going to be looking through a bunch of hands that Rampage played recently in a $10,000 buy-in tournament. That, spoiler alert, he somehow won. Let's take a look at a few hands. Hopefully this will work. Oh God, please work. Give it a second. Had all these hands pre-uploaded. Let's see if we can get it to work. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Nope. All right, I'll find the timestamp. It'll be okay.
And game.
Well, yeah, he's 24, Jeff. He's got a long.
That's true.
You may say, what in the world is DiStefano doing here, folding the King-Jack offsuit in the hijack seat? Well, you have to realize that with a bunch of big stacks to your left, big stack in the big blind, this is a spot where you want to be pretty tight. And I don't think you want to just open rip it in for 14 big blinds. He takes the passive route. I will say also, when you have players like Alex Foxen and Rampage Poker who get in there and battle hard, it's probably a good spot to be a litlittle tight and try to collect the payout jump.
Potential poker life ahead of him.
12 bigs.
It probably feels like piles.
14.
Right?
14 and
Yeah.
0.3.
10-8 on the button.
7-15.
This is loose. You may say, why is this loose? This is loose because we have the big stack in the big blind and DiStefano sitting here relatively short. Okay? But I will say, the big blind is known to be a recreational poker player, a doctor, so maybe there's a chance that the big blind is not going to play as loose and aggressive as badly as perhaps they should. That said, I do know small blind likes to get in there and splash pretty hard, so I think it's probably just a fold, but hey, let's watch Rampage.
115. Is Chrissy here? Or?
Yeah.
She's not railing?
No.
Nah.
She'll probably watch the stream.
Yeah.
Well, then shout out
I
to
know.
Chris
Save the
B.
rail for a
Maybe
nice
she brings
100K again.
the dog, too.
Yeah, we keep him rested for like the super high rollers.
I want to thank all of you for being here with me today, by the way.
You bring him everywhere, right? Now you do?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're happy to be here, click the like button.
I'd like to know
Talking
more
about
about
their
the
dog,
dog,
Riley.
Jeff. And
Riley.
oh my,
Him again,
the
yeah.
doctor.
Good.
Yeah.
He's got himself
Yeah, him and Bucky
a
get
set of
along well.
mallards.
Which thrills you to no end.
Well, obviously, we can't know the doctor has a set of mallards here, right? But this is a spot where I think we should be betting frequently and small, especially with a random 10 of hearts in our hand. 10 of hearts is a great card for us to have because it blocks lots of random continues like Queen 10 and random flush draws, etc., etc. So I like this. Seems like a good spot to go for a small bet.
Oh, the ducks are flying. He's going to get a continuation bet
Yeah,
here,
he
I
definitely should,
believe.
Yeah, for sure.
Out of Rampage, he can't help himself. Just 10-8 offsuit. He does have the 10 of hearts, and that's it.
Yeah,
At the
funny,
moment.
Riley
much is
just
it?
like loves being at our house so much, and he fucking hates like.
Notice, tiny bet here, 85,000 into 300. You should ask yourself, honestly, how much would you have bet in this spot? A lot of people would have bet 150 or 175 to try to really make them fold. The problem is that when your opponent just says nothing, they're probably going to fold immediately unless they are overly loose and aggressive. And also, you want to make sure that you are losing the minimum in spots like this when you bet and get raised. And if you do have a good hand, notice you'll be able to get your whole stack in by the river anyway, so you don't really need to bet big in this scenario to build the pot. So I like a tiny bet. An annoying spot for pocket twos here because you'd like to raise, but at the same time, Rampage is going to have all sorts of nonsense.
Hotels, and so I kind of feel bad
Really?
traveling with him.
Oh,
but like,
man, yeah.
it's like,
Oh, you guys always get a hotel, never like an Airbnb, right?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because with an Airbnb, it's even harder. He's even farther away. So like, you can't check on him on breaks and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
So like feeding him, like if we're both playing,
It's like a lot of work.
yeah.
All right, he's lining up a
The
raise.
lavender's coming out.
Raise.
A lot of them
Raising
too.
chips, yeah.
Breaks, honestly.
I definitely like a tiny raise here. I think in this scenario, you can probably go to something like 225, because if Rampage has nothing, you want to give him the best possible odds to continue, and you also want to give him the best possible chance to make a bluff. And the bigger you go, the more likely he is just to fold, right? Both with his nonsense and also with his marginal made hands.
And
The
it's
sizable
easier
check
for both if you weren't
raise.
always playing.
Yeah.
Looks like he was
Would
400k
be a
though.
lot easier, that's for sure.
Rampage is done with his hand. We're working on limited time here today. Don't want to waste time for no reason. All right. Here I have the next hand. Oop, no sound.
It's just amazing how much that like stimulus.
It's cool to be present in the
Like,
moment,
yeah.
opposed to having an option to back out. Like,
Song raises it up. Notice in this scenario, I think the King Jack is definitely playable. In the cutoff, with a shallow stack and 2 medium stacks yet to act, this is a spot where Song should be raising a decently wide range, especially once the other big stack folds. Papa Big Mac, first time here. Hello, hello.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't be here. So
Ooh, ace and king.
be here at all. Very true. You can't have your phone.
We took away his phone for the final table, but we're going to give it right back so he can get right on the content streets. Perhaps we'll create some content surrounding this hand as he looks down at ace-king in the small blind.
350.
Definitely
Yeah,
3-bet.
I can already foresee the clip being requested from this hand.
Masashi with ace-queen in the big blind with...
Let's take a look at this spot. Ugh. This is a scenario where certainly, normally, ace-king would be probably a reasonable fold. I know as nitty as that sounds. You may say, why in the world we fold here? We have loose aggressive Song raising. We have loose aggressive Rampage 3-betting. The problem, though, is that we have DiStefano here really short. So, do you want to just rip it in? I think I just said Song was in later position than the previous King Jack. He is not. My bad. I just can't read the board. Look, playing 23 big blinds deep. I don't fault Oya from considering a jam here. Ugh, what would I do in this spot? Not gonna lie. If you put Slotomy in this hand against Oya and Rampage, I think I'm probably just all in. I'm sorry, what am I saying? If I'm against Song and Rampage, I'm definitely just all in here. This is an annoying spot. But if you're against 2 tighter players, I think folding is definitely going to be the right play here, the ace-queen. Is this the final table? This is the final table.
a little bit more than 20 bigs.
And maybe thinking, yum, yum, what a great 4-bet opportunity. I don't believe Rampage out of the small blind. He's been active. I never.
The thing is, though, is that notice in this spot, Rampage is highly incentivized to not be active. If there's ever a spot where Rampage should be very nitty, it is exactly right here, because DiStefano's very, very short. Song can bust him. And if he 3-bets, obviously, or you can just rip it in on him as well. So this is a spot where really the only playable hand, I think, is pocket aces, pocket kings, and jack 4, but not... Well, ace-king is fine, too. Anyway, Oya should be pretty tight here.
Never believe Steven Song.
And
because
there
he's
is
a
that
nut
shove.
job. Here we go.
They get a count.
Song out of the way. Rampage has asked for a count. I can't imagine he's ever folding here.
Easy call. Annoying spot, but easy call. The thing is, if you think about a lot of the bluffs that Oya will have, they will be ace-x, right? Like the ace-x suited, ace-queen type hands. Ace-queen's not even like a real bluff. I mean, I guess it is essentially a blocker bluff when you get called, but it's a spot where I think ace-king just has to call off. And you may say, why would you not call off? You're always roughly 50-50. And the thing is that, notice in this scenario, we need to win 40-ish% of the time, right? I think that's the amount we need to win. It's kind of difficult to tell based on the graphics here. Maybe they'll update. But this is a scenario where you don't want to be anywhere near flipping, given DiStefano is playing very shallow here. That said, this is a spot where, since we are not going to go broke to Oya in this spot, we knows we'll have 500k left if we do call and lose. You just got to get it in. Even if it was for all of our chips, I think we have to be in, especially given Oya is a little bit loose and aggressive.
Exactly, 1-1.
1.1.
He calls.
Does make the call, and here we go. It's Oya all in and at risk with ace-queen.
Spoiler alert. Rampage wins. Let's see if this will update for me. Look at how responsible I was. Early in the day, I went through and I I loaded up every single hand, and now it's not going to work.
Where do you run into an
Well,
alpaca?
you know, we're
All right, let's take a look at what we're looking at here. 2550 Rampage in the hijack seat. Seems like a spot you're going to be raising a decent amount, but not too wide, because this is a situation where Song on the button's going to be pretty loose and aggressive, and Alex Foxen's a bit of a defender in the blinds. So even though Rampage does have the big stack, he can't be too loose here.
where I'm from back east. I had a
Oh, are
buddy
they?
that had a couple alpacas, but
Like his pets?
yeah, well, not. I mean, sort of. I think they would raise them and whatever, do whatever they do with their hair and fur to make sweaters like Dylan Dynamite there. You ever see Napoleon Dynamite?
Yes.
DeStefano's got a little Napoleon.
Ask what you would do in this scenario in Steven Song's shoes. Take a second, think about it. A lot of people make the blunder of re-raising or ripping it all in, but this is definitely a spot where you just want to call. You do not want to get all your money in the off chance that Rampage actually does have a very good hand. So this is a spot where you gotta call, I think.
Vibe to him, and there
Does
was an
he really? I
alpaca
don't
in
see that at
Napoleon
all.
Dynamite named Tina.
I
Call.
don't see the Napoleon DeStefano.
I mean, if you put
Comparison.
sort of the Napoleon hair on Dylan DeStefano's face, you would see it. And he's got the alpaca around the
No,
shoulders.
yeah, you do keep going back to the alpaca thing,
Yeah.
which I do see, of course.
So this is where poker gets kind of interesting, right? Because it's really difficult to know what Steven Song's range is in this scenario, because he's certainly a little bit loose, a little bit battly, but he's not like insane, right? So if he's not insane, what does his range look like in this situation? Well, it's going to be a lot of pairs, primarily, right? Suited connectors that will probably get out of the way on a later betting round. A lot of decently strong big cards that are probably not good enough to rip it in. So this is actually not a very good flop. I think this is a spot where you probably want to check most of the time. Now, if you told me Rampage wanted to check and maybe put in a check raise, I don't think I would hate that. That might be pretty strong. If you think Song's just going to be like really weak by the river, maybe this is an okay spot just to triple it off and hope he doesn't have a king. But I think you got to be a little bit cautious in this spot, given Song's range should be pretty strong
Wait.
here. Rampage does check. Seems like a nice spot for Song just to check it back. He really doesn't want to bet here and get
I do
raised.
run into an alpaca.
I caught you a nice bass.
Check.
It's a
Oh,
Napoleon reference. You've
Oh,
never
oh.
seen it.
No,
That's not your kind of
I've
movie.
seen it before, but yeah, it's
now betting becomes quite reasonable with a flush draw and a hand that lacks some showdown value. If you do bet this turn, you better be ready to bet the river.
Meanwhile, Rampage turns a flush draw in Song's eights.
Alpacas will bite you, by the way.
It seems like
Alpacas will bite you. It is worth noting in this spot that when you do bet this exact type of hand, you have to be a little bit cautious bluffing the river, because you don't really want to have two diamonds in your hand to bet the turn and the river in this scenario, because you're blocking a lot of your opponent's flush draws that they could logically have, like Queen 10 suited, Jack 10 suited, etc., which makes it more likely that they have a pair. That said, I do think this is a spot where you probably should just be over bluffing across the board against most people.
they're only found in South America.
But
So I don't know if your buddy is illegally transporting alpacas.
No. Listen, that's their natural habitat, but
Okay.
clearly there's alpaca farms. Folks raise them. That's
Yeah.
what barns are for. You can keep them warm.
Nice big bet.
Rampage leads pretty sizable with that flush draw.
You've probably never even seen a barn, have you?
No, I've seen barns.
You're from
I've seen
Texas.
barns. I've
They've
seen
got to
plenty of
have
barns, yeah.
farms and barns
do.
everywhere, don't they?
They do.
Have any of you ever seen a barn before? All right. This is a spot where I think Song just has to call, but it's a pretty annoying spot on the river because you can kind of foresee at least some amount of betting happening on the flop. I'm sorry, a decent amount of betting happening on the river. So I think this is a spot where it's probably ideal to call, and then probably call on safe rivers. The thing is a lot of rivers just aren't going to be safe. Like even a 4 or 5 are not particularly great. What are you representing when you check the flop and then bet both the turn and the river after the second diamond comes in? You're representing a range that is polarized, representing the best made hands and lots of draws. Obviously, there are a lot of draws available, but there's also a lot of good made hands, especially if you're going to be checking stuff like King X on the flop. So I definitely think this is a spot where Rampage does have plenty of good hands if he's playing well. You got to realize good players don't just bet all their good hands on the flop, especially if you want to have a decently wide checking range in scenarios like this.
In the great country of Texas, or
State.
well,
Great
it's kind of
state
its own
Texas,
country,
yeah.
though, isn't it?
No,
No.
it's a state,
Yeah.
part of the United States. Song makes the call with 8s.
Well, that's your opinion.
Queen on the river.
Ooh.
That's one way for Rampage to get there.
Yeah.
I kind of have the feeling Rampage was going to go for quite a big river bet on a brick. When he gets the queen, though, when he gets the queen, what should he do? I think in this spot, he probably wants to go pretty small. May seem abnormal to go big on the turn like he did, almost pot, and then small on the river. But you have to realize the hand has shifted value substantially from almost never good to probably pretty good. I think this is a spot where if you do bet and get raised, that's just not going to happen all that often. So I think this is a pretty nice spot to go for a small bet with a lot of medium-ish strength hands and a few bluffs and a few nuts. Look at Foxen staring him down, not in the hand. Well, you got to realize he's trying to get reads, right?
Beautiful ticket.
905,000 in the pot.
For Song now concerned about being up against a king, clearly.
Question is, how small do we go? I think maybe something like 250 is nice. Let's see what he does.
If Rampage does indeed check on this river, I would expect a check back from Song in hopes that you were up against some sort of hand like 5-6, missed backdoor diamonds.
325.
Look at this. He's going to lead for a third. A bit of a blocker sizing while also targeting this exact sort of holding.
Annoying spot for sure for Song facing this small bet. I definitely like the small bet here. I think a lot of people look at this and think, oh, I have showdown value. Now I need to check. But you have to realize in this spot, he's just not going to get raised on the river very often at all, especially when DeStefano's sitting here very, very shallow stacked, right? So this is a spot where you should be betting perhaps way wider than most people think, and a queen's definitely a good enough hand to go for it in this scenario. What does Song do? What a brutal spot. I mean, look, I don't hate a call. If you tell me I'm against someone like Rampage, I probably find a call unless I just, for some reason, think he's abnormally strong in these scenarios. I will say people across the board underbluff in this spot for the small bet size. And if they're going to be underbluffing in this spot for the small bet size, then you should be calling with bluff catchers way less often. It is worth noting if he calls and loses or folds and loses, he'll have roughly the same amount of chips. So I don't think it matters that much in terms of like stack preservation in this scenario. I'd probably call here. Let's see if Steven Song plays better than me.
8s, 9s, 10s.
Are we folding if we get raised? I have to presume so. This is a spot where Song's going to have various sets,
Song
right?
now in a tricky spot.
2 pair. He has a lot of pretty good hands here. And you have to be expecting him to find some pretty gnarly bluffs.
It's beautiful recognition by Rampage. Bets the turn, 275, gets called, and value bets the river.
Nice lay down by
Brutal.
Song.
Can't get the call. Steven Song plays too good. All right, let's take a look at this hand here.
I mean, this is perfect.
Imagine.
Song raises it up. Take a look at the situation now. Ooh, take a look at the situation now before we even look at Rampage's hand. Song raises, cutoff seat. Playing 30 big blinds deep. DeStefano and Foxen both have 10 big blinds. Almost nothing. What should we do in Rampage's shoes? I think this is a spot where we should be hyper aggressive. I would be shoving lots of ace-x, lots of king-x type hands. Mainly because this is a scenario where Song is probably opening a touch too wide, because a lot of people in this spot with a medium stack open a touch too wide. And then he's going to have to drastically overfold. So I think this is a spot where a lot of ace-x and king-x is going to want to be loading up, especially the suited versions. You may ask, why not 3-bet small? Or if we 3-bet small, so what? Let's say 360. And then he jams, obviously you have to fold, but at that point you give him plenty of room to shove on you. by jamming on him, you force him to have a lot of equity to call, which is kind of hard to do against random ace-x and king-x.
Is he? Yeah.
You've been to Montreal often?
I just
Never.
send you a couple spots while you're there too.
They won't let me in.
What about Aruba?
No. Been to Aruba.
On.
All and
Ooh.
Nice.
Max
Ton of
pressure
pressure.
on Song from our chip leader with those short stacks
Taking your
lingering.
ball.
Got one off of you.
And DeStefano and Foxen.
What do you mean? You won a big one off me earlier.
I like that
You
one.
bluffed me.
That wasn't a.
Rampage enjoys a good bluff. Some people say you should call the all-in. You should absolutely not call the all-in in this scenario. That would be a big, big mistake. You cannot call the all-in in the spot with the king-queen because you're roughly flipping against his range, right? Because his range can have a lot of ace-x. It's a kind of cool spot to shove because if you know Song is opening a lot of ace-x, king-x, maybe even suited connected stuff, maybe not bad stuff, but like an okay stuff, this is a spot where if you rip it in, he can't really call with much of any of it, right? And I do not think a 3-bet in this scenario makes more sense, a small 3-bet, because if you small 3-bet, it opens the door for Song to rip it in with a bunch of ace-x suited type hands, which he certainly should do some portion of the time. So if you just rip it in, he doesn't get to profitably play a very, very large chunk of his range. So I definitely like that spot to be a little aggressive. Also, King X suited has pretty good equity. I mean, not great equity, but like okay equity. If he had a weaker hand like King 5 offsuit, that'd be a better hand to 3-bet small, I think. All right, here we are now playing 1, 2, 3, 4-handed. Steven Song raising it up on the button. Foxen, short stack again, folds over to Rampage. Queen 4 offsuit. It's a hand that you probably want to 3-bet bluff sometimes. If you consider the way you would normally play pre-flop, I think this hand's like right on the cusp of playability. And in scenarios like this, you usually want to take these hands and 3-bet bluff them some portion of the time, or just fold, of course. If you think Song may be getting a little bit annoyed, a little bit frustrated, might rip it in on you overly wide, then I definitely like the idea of just folding. Perhaps you could call here if you think he's going to be really cautious post-flop because he wants to try to outlast Foxen. It is worth noting the blinds went up here. I did not notice that. So he's playing 20-something big blinds deep, 22 big blinds deep. 22 big blinds deep. Do we want to rip it or 3-bet small? You could also call, I guess. I mean, it's a spot where you can really go either way, but I think this is probably a pretty nice hand to bluff. A lot of bad King X and bad Queen X doesn't mind bluffing here.
Open here for a little more than the min. Yeah, with Queen 4 in the big.
I think he's 4-betting all in with ace-x suited into the chip leader at that point. Ace-x suited, yeah, I do. Ace-x offsuit, no.
Is it enough to get sticky? He has attacked Song already.
Could you apply
Look
some
at
pressure
this.
here as the chip leader with the short stack lingering for Song to worry about?
He does go for the smallish 3-bet. 170 to 480. Ooh, that is tiny. That feels like you're going to get called some portion of the time. But, I mean, to be fair, he doesn't have anything. What's he going to do?
This is an Alex Foxen-like move from Rampage.
Ironically, because it's Queen 4, isn't that the Helmuth
That's
Foxen
right,
hand?
that's right.
That'd be a
Should have been Jack
tribute.
4, obviously, everyone. Come on. Come on. It's like we're living in the past here.
There we go.
Different.
Like, this is a spot, for example, with ace-x suited I think you want to be in a large chunk of the time. Obviously, the previous spot was definitely different. Because there was even more payout implications there.
Song may see through this. He might come with the pile driver. Thinking, is this guy just trying to make more clips for his YouTube channel? Is he trying to embarrass me?
Sometimes you got to rampage, you know?
All right.
It gets through.
Song is so annoyed, as he should be. All right, let's take a look at this one. All right, let's take a look at the stacks here. Song is now very, 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 very shallow. This is a spot where Yao should be opening very wide. Yao Rampage. He should be opening very, very wide in this scenario. Yeah, I don't know if you want to be just open ripping all in a lot in this spot. Ugh. So the thing is, like, you can definitely shove very, very wide when you are playing 20-ish big blinds deep, covering 2 players and 1 player is very shallow. Because notice if the shallow player calls, you don't really care because there's a lot of dead money in the pot, right? And when you rip it in, it makes it to where both the button and the big blind just can't play, right? So I think this is a spot where if we expect both middle stacks to shove over us a decent amount of the time, then we definitely want to just shove most of the hands we're going to play. If we think the doctor on the button is not going to be especially aggressive, then I think this is a spot where you probably want to go for a smaller raise because you don't have to fear him ripping it in quite as much as perhaps someone like Alex Foxen will do. So I think you can go either way in the spot between raise and shove, depending on how you expect your opponents to react. I think it'd be better to shove like suited King X and suited Queen X. Stuff like that instead of this type of hand.
Wow.
Look at this. So you can just do it with ease. Any picture card, king, ace, decent queens. We're just all in.
Yes.
Max pressure.
Song is so short that Foxen and Brinkenoff perhaps a bit handcuffed.
Notice here in spots like this with Foxen with the 9-8, it's not even that great of a hand to defend whenever you are playing with a very, very shallow stack because you really, really, really don't want to make one pair and just have to put all your money in. So I think Foxen would have defended against a small raise, but it's definitely a close scenario, even with a hand that's as good as a hand like 9-8. He's rampaging.
You got it in good, too. What the hell? What do you hold?
That's because it was for
So-
my
so
tournament
strange.
life.
All right, Rampage up to 4.5 million, 45 big blinds. Again, same scenario, except for now Song has a few more chips. He has 8 big blinds.
I can only punt it off. Like, I can't actually bust from an all-in. At least lately.
It's like going to a Fish concert. You ever been to a Fish
Oh, no.
concert? That doesn't surprise me.
This is also a nice spot to shove very, very wide because small blind has to be very, very tight, and big blind now has to be very, very tight because everyone now has some amount of chips. This is a spot where you want to be overly aggressive because you're going to get a ton of folds unless your opponent happens to have a hand like pocket kings. When they have kings, well, we have an ace. Ace is pretty good.
Oh, wow.
Oh, boy.
Brinkenoff going to look down at 2 kings, and the tide might be turning at event number 2 of the Poker
I'm all in.
Masters.
Hello.
God fucking damn it.
Well,
Rampage obviously not thrilled.
He has a luck shirt.
Ace-5 right into kings.
It's a good one to look down at.
You know, look, this may look like a punt, but it's a pretty easy all-in. If you're not shoving all in with hands like this, you're not going to make it.
You
Yes,
get the
indeed.
ace. It's okay. I'm going home. It's been a good play.
Positive outlook for Dr.
Really making you
Brinkenoff.
sweat it.
Yeah.
That's
Rampage
confidence to know
lucky
you're not going
here.
to make it here. Batman predicts an ace. Think an ace is going to come? Oh,
There
hello.
it is.
Oh.
Ace in the window. Now it's Brinkenoff the one who needs to get lucky. Looking for a king. Does not show up on the turn. He'll need it to show up on the river to stay alive. And a bad beat ends
Good game.
Brinkenoff's
Good playing
day.
Bink for Rampage. Who'd have thought? Sometimes he plays well, sometimes he runs well.
Ace good enough, I would expect.
All right, let's take a look in this scenario. Okay, so now we're in a scenario where big blind has 9 big blinds, small blind has 21, and we have a bunch. I think this is a spot where it's probably best just to put in a min raise. I don't hate shoving. The thing is now is that Foxen is way less incentivized to just hang out than in the previous hand, right? Because when there are 2 20 big blind stacks, inevitably someone's going to collide, assuming there's also a 10 big blind stack and a big stack. As you are shoving in this spot into the 20 big blind stack first, and then the 9 big blind stack second, the 9 big blind stack can call off reasonably wide. So you in turn don't get to shove quite as often. It would be different if the stacks were reversed. If Song had 9 and Foxen had 20, this is a spot where you could then rip it in with these types of hands. But I think in this spot, you have to be a little bit more cautious.
More max pressure. But look at this. I think we're changing it up because of Song, who's accumulated 20 big blinds now.
2.5 big blind raise. I think you can probably just go smaller. I get the idea that you don't want to give Foxen amazing odds to call because Foxen is the type of player who will splash around a little bit, and also he's been getting good odds closing the action most of the time. But you have to realize this spot, Song's mostly going to shove or fold. So I think you probably just lose 25 or 50,000 more than necessary by putting in more than a min raise. And on the flop, you can just like bet minimum a lot against Foxen. So I think this is a spot where you may want to go smaller.
Now, if we min raise and he jams, we can easily fold ace deuce. He would probably do this with premiums as well.
I mean, I think this is just an all-in. It's an annoying spot with sevens. If Foxen was shallower, like say he had 5 big blinds, you're actually probably supposed to fold this. But I think given Rampage is clearly opening pretty wide, given we have solid 20 big blind stack, given the raise size is even a little bit bigger, which gives us a little bit more money whenever he folds, I think this is probably just a reasonable all-in.
At the moment, it seems as if that's exactly what's going to happen.
Giving us some thought, giving us some thought. It is worth noting, whenever you have a hand like...
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's nitty. Whenever you do have a hand like sevens here, I was going to say that you actually do block some of your opponent's obvious raise and fold type hands. So you have to be careful shoving these lower pairs, because when you have a lower pair, it's more likely they have hands not containing middle cards, like suited connectors and whatnot. But I think this is a spot where you probably just need to shove. If his pair was like a little bit lower, I think it probably becomes a more reasonable hand to fold. And like I said, if Foxen was shallower, I would also like a fold a little bit more. But I think in this spot, you probably just have to go with it.
Folds the sevens.
Yeah, sorry. My bad. Just remind me always.
You're bad, Steven. You're bad.
Really?
Not you're bad, but you know, you're bad. Your mistake folding the sevens.
Other.
Same level
Yeah.
of skill.
Way
Both
too.
All right. Similar spots, right? Now I have queen 5 suited. I think this hand is probably a little bit better than a hand like ace 2 offsuit. It's comparable. I mean, look, I don't mind going for a minimum raise again, but I'm way more inclined to jam hands like this that are suited because they just have usually a little bit more equity when you get called. So I would be more inclined to shove this one.
both fitness and nutrition specialists.
You guys are very similar, just like Jeremy Osmus and I are very
Good
similar.
all in.
Yeah.
Eights now. Is he going to fold eights? Same spot. Same spot. Oh my god.
So
Eights are clearly better than sevens, though.
we
Oh, no,
just
don't
saw
do it
Song
now.
fold sevens.
Don't fold eights. Oh, no. There we go.
Does make the call with the eights.
I had it.
Is it ever okay to just call a small raise with the sevens there? I mean, it's probably better than folding, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's not even better than folding. You have to realize, when you're out of position in these scenarios, you're going to drastically under-realize your equity. And because of that, you can't just go around calling with hands that are very marginal. They're going to often end up having to fold by the river, especially when you have a relatively shallow stack. Rampage in the chat. Good morning, good morning. We're looking at this guy named Yau. He's rampaging the table. It's almost as if he's playing like Rampage.
Easy call.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Foxen has ace-jack.
Okay, so here, Rampage shoves, Song calls. Foxen with the ace-jack. Easy fold at this point. I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about, right? If Foxen can just kind of sit around and hang out and hope that people bust themselves, this is obviously a fantastic scenario for him. And right here, I mean, even if he knew the hands, I mean, I guess if he knows the hands, maybe he should be inclined to call here because he's really, really live. And if he does call and lose, he does take third place. And if he calls and win, he has lots of chips, though. It's definitely a tough spot if he knew the cards. But he doesn't know the cards, clearly. And right here, Song has to have something pretty good to just call 19 big blinds, right? I will say eights is probably close in this scenario, given Foxen's now down to 7 big blinds only.
Gonna get out of the way, hope for some chaos.
Is Rampage going to rampage?
This one might hurt.
It ace king?
Ace jack.
Ace jack. I saw ace paint.
Yeah.
Let's see if I would have held versus the ace jack.
Could
Song
Song go from 3
loses
big
this.
blind?
If Song loses this, Rampage may be the luckiest player in all of existence. Do you all agree with that in the chat? If you agree with that statement in the chat, feel free to type 1 in the chat. If you think Rampage just runs normally, click 2.
Ace on
To
the flop.
4 million in chips.
Yeah.
If he does, it's game on.
Flush draw.
Oh boy,
Slut.
king 7
Okay.
deuce
At
2
least he was
clubs.
Flush draw is pretty good. I mean, look at all the outs.
Song needs to dodge a
Who you
queen
rooting
or
for?
a club.
He basically has the nuts.
I didn't have any clubs.
Everyone's pressing 1.
Say.
Oh, I
Turn
can put it
card.
here.
Is
Select
the
cam.
3 of clubs, and that just does it. We say good game to Steven Song.
Goodbye, Steven Song. Tough spot. To be fair, Rampage was probably just going to spike the ace on the previous hand, so either way, he's out in third. Heads up
It's up to them.
against Alex Foxen, one of the greatest players in the world. All right, we are playing 28 big blinds deep against a big stack. You're always playing the effective stack depth here. You don't really care about stack preservation at all. We're now just playing a heads-up match for the difference between first and second place money. Rampage, how much was the difference between first and second place money here? I do not remember. All right. This is a spot where, when we're playing in this game, notice 50-100 with 100 big blind ante. This is a spot where you cannot fold much of anything on the button because you have to put in 50K to try to win 300, which means you need to realize 18 or so % equity in position. You can't go around folding anything. So you're going to have a very, very wide limping strategy so that you can limp with a lot of your best hands, looking to limp shove, and you're also going to be limping with a lot of trash because, well, you're getting amazing odds in position. So this is a spot where I expect to see Foxen doing a pretty good amount of limping. Second was 145. First was, what was it, 200, give or take? Solid $50-something thousand heads up match.
Yeah, we
You
came
want
back to
5?
80K before.
Nah, I'm good.
After the last
What are you
break,
gonna
we
do?
came back
Just
to
sit
80K.
here? We'll talk for a
Probably
few.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Limp from the Jack 3. I don't hate raising with like really, really garbage like this. I think it's certainly something you could do some portion of the time. I will say, given the way Rampage has been rampaging, he probably should chill out a little bit, especially against someone like Alex Foxen who's not afraid to find hero calls. So I might relax a little bit in this scenario. All right, we relax. So yeah, $50,000 heads up match.
80K after last break. So this is the second level since then. I don't know if you're trying to. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Very clear marginal made hand heads
Song's
up.
bottom pair this time. Checks.
I don't mind a tiny bet here from Foxen. His hand is not in good shape. That said, check and just give up is fine too.
Foxen checks back king on the turn.
This is another nice spot just to check for Rampage with a very clear weakish hand. Check, 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 check. Rampage is then Cabo enjoying that cash, says Jack Walker. Hope Rampage is enjoying the cash. When you win, make sure you enjoy the cash. What do you all like in this spot? Can Rampage go for value? You may say, what? He has the bottom pair. He does have the bottom pair, but if you think about it, Foxen's going to bet a lot of his Queen X on the flop. If you think about it, Foxen's going to bet a lot of his King X on the turn. It's kind of hard to have an 8. Now, he would certainly check down a lot of 8s on the flop and the turn, but he'd bet a lot of his good 8s, I think, on the flop as well. So I don't mind a river bet. Pot's 300K. I think you can go for something like pot. I mean, you're going to easily get called by a lot of ace highs. If Foxen decides to go a little call happy, he might even call with a jack high. Now, look, I realize you're not allowed to call with Jack High anymore, but this hand took place a few weeks ago, before the previous Jack High. So this is a spot where I definitely think Jack High is actually a pretty reasonable call. Hand like pocket threes can call. There's actually a decent amount of hands in this scenario that can reasonably call that I think Foxen could have. So I like a bet on the river. He says check and then check call. Well, if we check, we're definitely checking and calling. We're certainly not folding, but I think this is a spot where we can reasonably go for value. Obviously, if we knew Foxen had exactly the Jack 3 or the Jack 4, a hand like that, they're all the same. We'd probably want to go for... What do we want to do? No, we probably want to go ahead and throw in a bet. How much are we going to bet? Tough spot. I mean, look, I've played against Foxen a decent amount. Foxen really enjoys not folding. So against someone who really enjoys not folding, I think I'd just go for a big bet like pot. Feels dirty, but I think it's fine.
One of those spots, Jeff, where if Rampage elects to go for value here, which I suspect he will with a 6, where Foxen may consider calling with Jack High.
You're not allowed to do that anymore. Nobody told the commentators.
Rampage looking for 300K here.
Yeah. All right, Rampage goes.
Okay, if he has ace high, he would just check, right?
Mm-hmm.
We play like Rampage.
But all of his
almost
non-paired hands that do not include ace high would probably bet and try and steal this pot, right? What would you do with a hand like 7-4?
10 seconds.
You're not just trying to get the showdown. There it is.
Does make the call with the Jack High. And Rampage does get the value with the 6s.
Ooh, yum, yum, yum. Dum dee dee dum. 3 little cookies for Rampage. Nice hand. Nice hand. You can't call more than 100K with Jack High. Well, apparently you can. Foxen just called 300,000 chips. All right, heads up.
20 bigs for the whole tournament today.
25 big blinds.
He's been fighting to stay in this thing, surviving.
Limping pretty wide. Ooh, let's discuss this right here. You may ask, what kind of hands does Foxen really want to raise in these scenarios? And I think the answer is a lot of really junky garbage and a lot of very good hands. Now, I'm not going to say Foxen should definitely raise in the spot with a 6-2, but I definitely think it is reasonable. You may think it's not reasonable. We have charts coming out very soon on pokercoaching.com for heads up with a big blind ante. Also notice here we're playing 75, 125. Slightly weird blind sizes. You can't fold anything from the small blind here. Checking's obviously okay too. You want to mix it up, depending on how you expect Rampage to play. I gotta presume Rampage is playing close to every hand. As your opponent's playing closer and closer to every hand, I think you should be more inclined to raise with just total garbage. Is he gonna do it? He is!
Bump it up with some good hands, bump it up with some bad hands.
75.
How much you make it?
Raises
Tiny?
with the 6 deuce.
Now look. I'm always a little bit paranoid going for the really tiny raises in spots like this with the absolute garbage, but I'm going to presume whatever Foxen is doing is right. Obviously,
Exactly.
Rampage is going to call.
He's just trying to earn it once more. I think King 7, though, for Rampage is a little too good of a hand. Heads up to consider folding pre. There's a world in which, Jeff, he comes with some over-the-top aggression. No, he's just going to call. Let's take a little texture.
You definitely don't want to jam stuff like the King 7 offsuit here, because when you do get called, you're going to be in miserably bad shape for a bunch of chips. So definitely just call, see the flop, go from there. If Foxen happened to raise much bigger, if you pay attention to a lot of the best players heads up, they'll use like small raise sizes sometimes and like 7 big blind raise sizes over limps. They mix it up. And in that scenario, you can probably start to find some folds. But obviously, you can't fold facing the small raise. All right, good game.
Jack 9.
Just don't fold.
Pair.
Probably don't want to raise either, by the way. A lot of people make a mistake of when Foxen bets here, they just rip it all in because they don't want to get outdrawn. The problem is that whenever Foxen has just total garbage, you let him fold out all of his equity.
Just a stone zero for Foxen. He's got to do the old running 6 deuce trick or running 6s, running deuces. The only shot he has to win the pot. The other avenue is you sit.
Pause. Now look, I've got to presume this is a spot Foxen should be betting pretty often, but if there's a flop to not bet, this has to be one of them. I mean, obviously if you're betting your whole range, fine and good and whatever, but this flop is so easy for Rampage to connect with. Maybe the play is just to go for a tiny bet to try to get like random ace high and queen high to fold. Let's see how much Foxen bet with its 2% equity.
Simply just earn it. He's trying to do exactly that.
Small bet, okay.
250.
I see people in the comment section saying, how in the world can he call with jack high, etc., on that previous hand? Look, you got to realize that jack high hand was very, very, very different than the other jack high hand people are discussing. And one, Foxen's call is like pretty reasonable. I mean, hell, I probably would have called there, and I'm not even that big of a calling station. Well, I am a calling station, but that's a trivially easy call. Whereas the other jack high call was absurd. Hopefully you all can realize the difference in those things. If you cannot, you should definitely study poker a little bit more.
50 with nothing.
Easy call here, I think, with the king 7. You really, really, really want to keep him in with the garbage.
10 seconds.
Yao calls.
I mean, one was for 3 big blinds. You realize 3 big blinds is not a lot.
Oh, no.
Also,
6.
it was on the river at the showdown.
Turn.
Right now.
6
Yeah.
on the turn.
We have life.
It's about 1.4 million in the pot. Foxen with 1.8 million behind.
Rough spot on the turn. I think I'd probably just check, but when you check, it's really brutal if you face a turn bet, which you will a decent amount of the time, I think, in this scenario. Alternatively, you could bet, just try to power through. Ugh, it would feel bad to power through here. You're going to get called by a king and a jack every time. I mean, if you think Rampage will fold out a jack by the river to a turn plus river bet, I guess I don't hate it. Ugh, I mean, I don't know. I probably would have check folded the flop to begin with, but anyway, if we find ourselves here, we're probably not good. Maybe we're supposed to blast it. Let's see what he does.
This is where it gets a little bit strange once more.
Foxen would rather just turn nothing, so he could check
I
fold.
don't believe it's good, but are we hoping it simply goes check, check, and we get to that river? For the times Rampage has some sort of 9, maybe a jack, where he...
I definitely like a bet here. With this king, you can easily get called by a jack or a 9. You can probably maybe even get called by like ace, queen, and ace 10 type hands. And if you bet and get jammed, I think you just have a pretty easy call.
He would knuckle. Would have to imagine a king would likely bet with top pair.
10 seconds.
Definitely a weird spot to try to figure out how much to bet because the board is quite draw heavy. But I don't think we want to just rip it. You would have folded jack 6-2 offsuit pre-flop. Is that wrong? Yeah, whenever you can check for free in the big blind, you should not fold anything because it's free. Guess I go medium here.
Clearly Foxen knows that. I mean, it's
This is
not
chunky.
too, Jeff.
700,000.
Trying to figure out some bluffs. Could we be up against a hand like 10-8?
This is a rough spot to be in. I mean, look, I get the idea there's a lot of draws available, but the thing is all the draws have a load of equity. However, we're playing against Rampage. We're playing against Rampage. You know, I played against Rampage a few times, and people don't like to fold him for some reason. It's almost as if they've watched him play a lot of hands on the internet. Given they've watched him play a lot of hands on the internet, I'm not going to fault Foxen if he sticks around here, but it's so rough whenever you call, turn, and then get to the river. Because, I mean, the river's never good for you.
That's about it.
Remember, no time extensions left for Alex Foxen.
Whoa, he thinks the 6 is good.
Yeah, he does.
All right.
The call.
It's called Rampage equity there.
Almost 2.8 million in this pot now. The river is the queen of hearts.
Oh my god.
I mean, this is fascinating.
Should Fox never make some absurd bluff here? Oh my gosh. This is a rough one because you clearly have no good relevant blocker. In spots like this, you always want to ask, like, what are my worst hands? What are the worst hands I can possibly have? Might be sixes. Because notice a queen just, like, ace-queen type hand just made a queen. Ace-10 is a straight, right? What are the worst hands he has? I mean, if he had a random heart, he's probably supposed to bluff this. Assuming you want to have any leads. As you get shallower and shallower, you certainly should develop some leads. Ugh. Could have 8-7. Yeah, sure, we could have 8-7. It's not a whole lot of bluffs, though. If you think about it, there's actually a decent number of pretty good hands you could have. Like 10-9 type stuff. Jack-9. I'm sorry, Jack-10. Ace-10, of course. This side to splash around. Lots of ace-X of hearts. Now, look, I mean, I may be talking myself into an insane bluff shove here. Obviously, you'd rather have a 6, or a heart, but even then, the heart doesn't matter that much because it's a random brick, too. Weird spot. Weird spot.
Fox did believe that his 6 was good. And he was up against some sort of queen 8, 10-8 sort of hand. Well, now all of a sudden, the straight comes home.
I mean, I think Rampage just has to check it here, right?
Maybe something like 7-8 that was peeling for the gutter.
This would be thin.
Just going to get the showdown. I think Rampage should be very content with checking back here. Showdown top pair. If he does bet, Jeff, I believe he's turning a king sort of into a bluff. Now, here we go.
Notice you don't really want to turn a king into a bluff in this scenario because when you have the king in this spot, you're trying to get 2 pair to fold, and Foxen is pretty shallow here, right? 1.1 million into a 2.7 million pot. You can't really expect your opponent to find folds with 2 pair in this spot, given the amazing odds. So I like the check back there. I mean, look, it would have felt absurd to me in game to shove with the 6-2, but if you consider Rampage's range, there's going to be a lot of, well, it's obviously going to have a lot of flushes and a lot of straights in it, but it's also going to have a lot of non-flushes and non-straights in it. So weird spot, that's for sure.
He does check. He does show down the winner.
Foxen wasn't happy about that one. I had the pleasure of sitting next to Foxen at a wedding the other day. He's actually a very nice guy, believe it or not. Believe it or not. Believe it or not, the way he stares at people at the poker table.
Foxen with a real hand here. Just limps in.
20 big blinds deep. Or sorry, 15 big blinds deep. Definitely a spot where you do want to do a lot of limping with the big blind ante. You can't go around raising and jamming all your hands. You got to do a lot of limping.
With the ace-king, and Yao is 2 8s.
2 8s for Rampage. Seems like an easy all-in to me. At this point, when you're out of position and the pot's already 375,000, this is a spot where you're very, very happy just to shove and get them to fold out whatever they have. Or sometimes you got to play a flip. So far, we've seen Rampage do pretty well in all-ins. You think he's going to win this one?
On a collision course once again are these two.
Here we go.
On.
There's the all-in. There's the call.
Wow. This one's pretty fair.
This one's very fair.
This one is a flip for almost 3.7 million in chips.
All right, everybody, get out your money and flip it. See if you would have won. See if you would have won. I would have lost.
Rampage acquire his first ever Poker Masters title.
If you won your flip at home, let me know in the chat. Hard to win flips around here.
The 8s to be on the right end of this flip for that to happen.
All right.
Queen 10-9 with 2 clubs. Backdoor flush draw is there. The straight draw is there for Alex Foxen. Looking for an ace, a king, or a jack. Or again, could go club.
That would make 10, queen, 9. That would make it fun.
Turn card. The 6.
All the
Alex
outs.
Foxen with 10 outs to stay alive. Needs a jack, an ace, or a king, or else it's Ethan Yau's title. River card. It's a 7, and it's Rampage making his name known in the high roller arena.
Congrats, bro. Thanks, man.
Nice win for Rampage Poker. Made it straight on the river, so he would have beat almost everything. Good job, good work. Now, if you want to learn more from Rampage, we're going to teach you how to BINK tournaments like Rampage. You all just saw Rampage win his first high roller tournament 3 weeks ago. But did you know that very recently, Rampage started getting one-on-one coaching from high-stakes crusher and poker coaching coach Brock Wilson, who has over $5.7 million in live tournament earnings. And in fact, he actually had his first coaching session with Brock just a few days before he BINKed this tournament. What I want to know is, how would you like to be a fly on the wall and follow Rampage's journey to becoming a world-class tournament player? Well, now you can. I'm excited to share with you our newest series on pokercoaching.com called How to BINK Tournaments with Brock and Rampage Poker. They've both been BINKing tournaments left and right. Brock just took a very, very deep run in, what was it, a WPT or a tournament in Florida, one of the big ones recently. They're absolutely crushing it. This new series is live now on pokercoaching.com, and their first one-on-one session is over 90 minutes long. We're going to be adding lots of their private coaching sessions to this course over the upcoming months. In this video, you're going to see Rampage and Brock go over a lot of the hands that Rampage played in the past, including some of his good bluffs, some of his massive punts, and everything in between. So if you want to follow their journey, to watch Rampage become a world-class tournament player and learn with one of the best poker tournament players in the world today, Brock Wilson, who I personally really wanted to get content from for pokercoaching.com because he absolutely crushes it. Well, we have a promotion for you right now. Head over to pokercoaching.com/Brock Rampage. This series that they're going to be continuing to make over the upcoming months is not for sale. You cannot buy this individual series. The only way you can get it is to become a Poker Coaching Premium member. And right now, we're offering you our lowest prices ever for 3-month or 6-month memberships to be sure that you can continue studying with Brock and Rampage for a long time to come. So make sure you check it out at pokercoaching.com/Brock Rampage. A lot of people ask, why don't just sell courses? If you want to look at a lot of the other poker training sites out there, they sell expensive courses. And to be fair, if I was going to sell this would be an expensive course. But I'm very fortunate in that I and the coaches I've hired have been making a ton of training content for my students for many, many years. And I want to give you access to all of it. If you've never been to pokercoaching.com, we have the Master the Fundamentals course, which is completely free. You can check that out at pokercoaching.com/fundamentals. If you think that Jack High call was horribly bad by Alex Foxen, well, you should probably watch the Fundamentals course, because that was probably a fundamentally pretty reasonable call. Also at Poker Coaching, we have 2 gigantic courses that are over 60 hours long. We have the Tournament Masterclass and the Cash Game Masterclass that will teach you everything you need to know to be up to speed so that you can make full use of all the other very high-level, high-quality training content at pokercoaching.com. So, if you want to take your game to the next level and learn from Brock and Rampage, check it out at pokercoaching.com/Brock Rampage. I've already been through a few of the videos. They are excellent. I've learned a lot from Brock Wilson's content that he has made previously on Poker Coaching, and we're very excited to have Rampage on board too. I know a lot of you think Rampage is just a lucky punter, and to be fair, he plays a high-variance style. But he plays a high-variance style better than almost anyone. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And every once in a while, you win the title. It's always good to win titles. A lot of people look at him winning a title and think, oh, he was lucky, he won his all-ins. To be fair, he lost some all-ins in the tournament too. And, hate to break it to you, sometimes when you win the tournament, you will have run hot. It is okay. You want to make sure that when you play tournaments, you actually play a strategy that gives you a chance to win the tournament when you do run hot. What a lot of people do wrong is they sit back, they blind out, they squander their opportunity, they win some hands, they get a big chip stack, and then they just blind out and try to take 3rd place. And then they end up taking 7th place, and they wonder, why do I never win the tournament? Well, if you paid attention to Rampage in his poker career, or Brock Wilson in his poker career, you know they do a whole lot of winning. They win the tournaments. And they win the tournaments because they get in there and they battle hard. Sure, sometimes they end up not winning. They take 8th place or 10th place. But these two players have about as good a chance of anyone in the field of winning any individual event. And that is an excellent way to go about giving yourself the best possible chance of having a great return on investment. So anyway, if you want to learn from them, check it out at pokercoaching.com/Brock Rampage right now. You got to risk it for the biscuit. Indeed. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Thank you all very much for being here. If you want to do me a quick favor, click the like and subscribe buttons below. I'd appreciate it. Also, go check out Rampage's channel. Rampage puts a lot of work into making amazing video blogs. He's one of the best video bloggers out there, maybe the best. So if you feel like heading over there right now to check out his channel, that would be good. You can also head over to pokercoaching.com/Brock Rampage and study from Brock and Rampage right now. Your choice, either one. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Hope you make the most of your week. And I'll talk to all